Welcome to the training. In this lesson, you will learn about the issue of human trafficking and the unique position of the hospitality industry in addressing it. This lesson will teach you the signs of human trafficking and what to do if you suspect a case. While we hope you do not ever have to use these protocols, hospitality employees should not be naive to the fact that traffickers may use their property for exploitation. After completing this course, you should be able to define human trafficking and the commercial sexual exploitation of children, understand the difference between labor and sex trafficking, recognize the signs of trafficking, react to a suspected incidence of trafficking at your property. Human trafficking is criminal activity in which human beings are coerced, forced, or deceived into an exploitative situation for another person's monetary gain. Human trafficking is the second largest and fastest growing criminal industry in the world. Most commonly, the purpose is for sex and/or labor. All those involved in recruiting, receiving, or obtaining the person for that purpose have committed a trafficking crime. Human trafficking and the commercial sexual exploitation of children are violations of human rights, international law, and the laws of many countries. For example, in the United States, the Victims of Trafficking and Violence Protection Act of 2000, TVPA, and in the United Kingdom, the Modern Slavery Act, 2015, state that it is illegal to monetarily benefit by exploiting a person. Many hoteliers would find it hard to believe that human trafficking can occur at their properties. However, exploitation occurs across a varied spectrum of properties, from locally owned motels to luxury chain establishments. It only takes one case of trafficking to be uncovered in a property to have serious consequences for the business. Click on each risk area to learn more about the safety, reputational, financial, and legal risks your property may face. Trafficking is often connected to other criminal activities, including drugs and violent assault, which can jeopardize the safety of hotel guests and associates. Our employees and customers mean everything to us. If they hear of a case in the news, this can cause employees and customers to lose trust in our company and damage a property's reputation. A property's bottom line can be impacted by negative publicity, legal fees, business interruptions, and property damage associated with trafficking. Various state and local laws could hold hoteliers liable for trafficking that occurs at their properties. Human trafficking does not just affect faraway places. It is happening in cities and suburbs all over the world. There is no one face of human trafficking. Victims come from all backgrounds and include women, men, and children. Traffickers often target vulnerable populations, including people living in poverty and runaway or homeless children. At-risk teenagers and victims of abuse are also vulnerable potential targets. Victims from other countries may be lured to our country through the promise of school or work, or even sold to traffickers by their families. Traffickers use very specific measures to target, manipulate, and maintain their victims. Victims are often threatened with violence to themselves, their friends, or family. They are often isolated from any relationships. Victims can often become addicted to illegal drugs and are ruled through fear and manipulation. As hospitality employees, we are the eyes and ears of the hotel. In this section, we will focus on sex trafficking. With the growth of technology, traffickers are moving their businesses off the streets and onto the internet. The same websites that sell used furniture and appliances sometimes have sections where traffickers are selling their victims. Unbeknownst to employees, traffickers may check into a hotel and run their operations out of rooms or use the rooms to meet with buyers. Traffickers think that hotels are anonymous and low risk. No trafficking victim should go unnoticed. Sadly, this happens all too frequently. Instances of sex trafficking are not always easy to spot. You must look for subtle signs and notice unusual behaviors, including the following indicators to identify the trafficker. Pays for the room in cash, one day at a time. Escorts various men into the room and lingers until they leave, watching the door. Seen with many young persons or children exhibiting signs of trafficking. Requests for isolated, private rooms or rooms close to an exit. Does not leave the victim alone. Continuously receiving and making calls from their cell phone. Victims often wear revealing clothing or too much makeup and have little or no luggage. Victims may be drugged and disoriented or simply too scared to run away, as traffickers often get their victims addicted to drugs and deprive them of sleep as a means of control. In some cultures, branding is a way for traffickers to mark their victims and to make the victim feel as though they belong to the trafficker. Comparable to the branding of cattle, traffickers commonly use the same tattoo to brand each of their victims and signal his or her ownership. It is important to note that one sign on its own does not indicate sex trafficking or the commercial sexual exploitation of children. Use your professional judgment to review situations, but be sure to report your suspicions to management. Depending on where you work in the hotel, you might see different aspects of sex trafficker-victim interactions, though some signs and behaviors are the same or similar for various hotel positions. Click on each area of the hotel, then click Next to continue. Click on each tab to learn about the specific signs and behaviors in-room staff might see. Click on each tab to learn about the specific signs and behaviors lobby staff might see. Click on each tab to learn about the specific signs and behaviors restaurant staff might see. A trafficker may case out a hotel before checking in to see how many cameras or security personnel are in the hotel. Traffickers threaten victims with severe consequences if they speak to police. Uniformed security personnel have a similar presence as police, which victims will avoid. In this section, we will focus on labor trafficking. Labor trafficking occurs when an adult is coerced, forced, or deceived into an exploitative work situation for another person's monetary gain. Victims are often facing extreme poverty and are manipulated through lies about work and financial opportunities. Recruiters can be family members or seemingly legitimate businesses looking for employees. Victims often believe they must work against their will or to pay off debt. Labor trafficking can occur in all businesses, and our industry is in a unique role to identify potential victims. As community members, we need to look out for each other. Victims of labor trafficking are forced into exploitative work situations, are paid little, and are unable to leave. They are often mistreated, deprived of sleep, and isolated from the community so they believe they are alone and cannot ask for help. Traffickers target victims who do not speak the language of the country and those staying on beyond the expiration of their visa status. The following are common indicators for labor trafficking: disoriented, confused, lacking sleep, or showing signs of abuse, not in possession of passports, other travel, or identity documents. Fearful or timid of authority figures, may avoid eye contact. Afraid of revealing their immigration status. Same attire or little belongings. Unable to communicate freely or coached on what to say. Malnourished, injuries at different stages of healing, and/or lack of medical care. It is important to note that one sign on its own does not indicate labor trafficking. Use your professional judgment to review situations, but be sure to report your suspicions to management. Trafficking is a crime that takes place 365 days of the year. However, just as large-scale special events increase revenue for surrounding businesses, they can also cause an increase in demand for sex and contracted labor. The large crowds at the events often allow traffickers and victims to go unnoticed. Hotel industry employees must be particularly alert to the possibility of human trafficking and child sexual exploitation during special events such as Super Bowl, Olympics, World Cup, professional automobile races, golf tournaments, conventions, concerts. Be especially alert to the signs of sex trafficking during such occasions. Traffickers are unpredictable and sometimes violent. This can put you, your hotel's guests, and the victim at risk. You should never get directly involved in a potential trafficking situation. Do not confront the victim or the trafficker. Speaking to the victim may lead the trafficker to believe he or she is trying to flee and puts them at risk. Like in many domestic violence situations, the victim is unlikely to identify as a victim. Instead, they might get protective. Again, you should never get involved in a potential trafficking situation. Your role is to alert management of your suspicions. Management will then make an assessment of the situation and determine if law enforcement must be contacted. Remember, there may be a wholly innocent explanation for conduct or behavior that appears suspicious in nature. For this reason, no single indicator should be the sole basis for law enforcement action. The totality of indicators and other relevant circumstances should be evaluated when considering any law enforcement response or action. Click on the appropriate button to learn about the specific employee and manager responsibilities and protocols for responding to incidents of trafficking. If you suspect an instance of trafficking, you must first assess the situation. Decide whether the signs of human trafficking you learned about in this course are present. Assessing human trafficking in hotels is a nuanced process and does involve using professional judgment. Next, you must immediately contact the manager on duty. The manager will further assess the situation. If you witness one or two indicators but are still unsure of your suspicions, alert your manager so they can observe the situation. Do not call the police yourself or confront the victim or trafficker. This could put you, the guests, and the victim at risk of violence. To help your manager and law enforcement officials after reporting your suspicions, immediately take down as much information as you can about the incident, including names, room numbers, dates, and description of individuals involved. The manager will respond based on your property's protocol. Having completed this training, you should now be familiar with the definition of human trafficking and the commercial sexual exploitation of children, the difference between labor and sex trafficking, the signs of human trafficking, including recognizing populations vulnerable to such exploitation, how to react to a suspected incidence of trafficking at your property. If you have any questions, please ask your manager, who will be able to answer them for you.